And so today we begin with one of our video presentations called The Symbol of the Journey. Now I have it here, 1 second. A little thing on what you can expect to see, and then it'll be followed by an interview with two of my guests on the set. Symbol of the Journey talks about how do we look at progress on this journey. A question we always ask. So over to that and back to the interview with my guests.
John Main made a very important distinction about meditation as a discipline or as a technique. If we practice it as a technique, then it's still our own ego that is in control. We want to get something out of it. We call the shots. But if we practice it as a discipline, then we are really opening ourselves to the mystery of meditation as a journey, the journey to our own center, the journey into God. How can we measure a journey? When I came from London to Singapore, where I am now, I began at a particular point, and I arrived at another point, and I was able to measure, more or less, where I was on the journey. I was a quarter of the way, half the way, and then I arrived. But we don't measure the spiritual life or the spiritual experience in this linear kind of way. When Jesus spoke about the Spirit, he described it as like the wind. He says we feel the wind, we can experience it, but we don't know where it comes from or where it is going. If we don't know the beginning or the end, then we don't measure it in that material kind of way. When you're learning a language or learning some other kind of skill, you can maybe measure your progress as well. But in meditation, we measure or we experience our progress in very different ways. Rather than a linear model for the spiritual journey, one of the most popular symbols in all traditions is that of the spiral. And the spiral seems at times to be doubling back on itself. We seem to be covering the same ground. And yet all the time we are moving deeper. The journey is a deepening journey of faith. Another very useful symbol for this journey is the labyrinth. On the floor of the great 13th century Cathedral of Chartres in France, there is an ancient labyrinth which was used by pilgrims of the Middle Ages to make a symbolic journey to Jerusalem. They usually made it on their knees. But it's also a symbol of the journey to our own heart. This is the journey that we begin the day we start to meditate. The Desert Fathers, the early Christian monks who have given us the earliest descriptions of this Christian tradition of meditation, spoke about different stages of the journey, somewhat similar to that experience of the spiral. They say that when you begin the journey, the spiritual journey to your own heart, to the hub of the wheel, you begin often with a great deal of enthusiasm, a great deal of optimism, and you think you're going to arrive at the goal, whatever that is, very quickly. And this is similar to the experience of starting to walk the labyrinth. Here's the center, that's the goal, that's where we want to get to. And this is where you start. And you say, well, that's great. Here to here isn't very far. I can do that quite quickly. That's the initial first fervor of conversion, or the first zeal that the meditator often feels at the outset. And sometimes when you begin to meditate, you do have some quite illuminating experiences. You can have some quite strong experiences of light, of joy, of peace, and you think that that's it, I've arrived. But, as with any serious journey, which is also a relationship, and we need to understand meditation as a relationship with ourselves, with God, with other people. As with any journey, our faith is going to be tested as we enter more deeply into the experience. So when you enter the labyrinth, it seems at first as if you're going to go straight to the center. But then you find that you seem to be diverted. You're going off on this journey away from the center, and then you loop back. And then again you feel you're going to almost get to the center, and you seem to be almost brushing beside it, and then you start to move away from it. Those early Desert Fathers were great psychologists as well as great spiritual teachers. They understood that this journey of meditation takes us through cycles of growth. We see these cycles perhaps represented here in the twists and turns of the labyrinth. At first we have great enthusiasm, and the enthusiasm may begin to wane a little bit, and you may find, like most people, that after you begin to meditate, you give up after a few days or a few weeks or even a few months, and that you stop, you start again. This means that when you begin to meditate, although it seems at first that you may be heading straight for the goal, you then feel that you are losing something. The early Christian monks thought that this was equivalent to what they called acedia. Acedia is the word they use to describe the feeling of discouragement, the feeling that you're not making much progress, the feeling that maybe you're wasting your time. And most meditators run into that kind of experience at some point in their journey. You feel that this is rather dry, that nothing is happening, there's no excitement, there's no great feeling of joy or peace. And maybe you're just experiencing a deluge of distractions. And you may say to yourself, well, I'm no good at this, I really should try something different, I need something else. There are times, and if you've ever walked the labyrinth, you will probably have experienced this, when you get a moment of panic and you suddenly fear that maybe you've taken the wrong turn. Maybe you're never going to get out of this labyrinth, you're never going to get to the center, you've made some mistake. This is where you need to understand the difference, not just between discipline and technique, but also between a labyrinth and a maze. A maze is a real puzzle, and a maze is something that you get stuck in. You can't get out of it. You have to come back to where you started and escape, because there is no way through in a maze. There's no ultimate meaning in the journey. But the labyrinth is a symbol of the meaning of the spiritual journey, and the fact that there is a goal, there is a destination. And all we have to do is to follow the path. And remember something else Jesus said about the path. He says it is a narrow little path that leads to life. And saying the mantra, meditating each day, morning and evening, whatever you may feel like, whether you feel like doing it or not, that is following a narrow, humble little path. The Desert Fathers were very wise when they said that when you run into this experience of acedia, the most important thing to do is to persevere. And this is where we need the support and friendship of a community. This is very helpful in those times of discouragement. And therefore, we need to have this faith understanding of the experience of meditation to take us through these times and experiences where we seem to be moving away from the center, away from our own heart, to be lost in our distractions, lost in a desert of some kind. As we follow this labyrinth, all we have to do is to keep on the path. This is why it's very important to remember the basic simplicity of this way of meditation. To sit down, to sit still, to close your eyes, and then silently, interiorly, to keep repeating the word. Saying the word, saying your mantra, is just following this path. It's as simple as that, one foot in front of the other. Eventually you move to the other side of the labyrinth, and you begin to notice a symmetry between the two sides. The symmetry represents the pattern of experience in your life, which you begin to recognize as you look at your life from a deeper spiritual perspective. Things that don't seem balanced or connected begin to acquire a meaning and a pattern. And again, there are times when you seem to be covering the same ground, going over and over again, but eventually you come to the point of the home run, and then you find yourself moving directly into the center. But the Desert Fathers were very encouraging, and they tell us that if we persevere through these times of achedia, we come through into what they called apatheia. And although that sounds a bit like apathy, it's the complete opposite of apathy. Apatheia for them meant a healing of our inner life, a healing of our mind, a concentration of the whole person in the experience of the Spirit. In apatheia we experience harmony, stillness, bursting forth into joy. And then they said that the child of apatheia is agape. And agape is the Greek word that means love. There's a parable of Jesus about the kingdom of heaven that is very important here. He says that the kingdom of heaven is like a man who takes a seed, and he plants the seed in the ground, then he goes away, he goes to bed at night, he gets up in the morning, lives his ordinary life. But all the time the seed is growing. How, he does not know. And then eventually the first signs of growth begin to appear. Now, when we meditate, we are planting the seed of the word deep in our hearts. And much of that growth is taking place out of sight. We can't see. How, we do not know. This is why it's important to understand that the whole of this journey is not just a technique, but it's a discipline leading us to love. St. Catherine of Siena said that all the way to heaven is heaven because Jesus is the way. We could say also that the whole of this journey is a work of love, because what we find at the center is pure love, the love of God.
Hello again. Following on that video, I'd like to introduce my guests who will discuss with me a bit about their own experience of meditation practice and where meditation is, what it is for them, where it fits in their lives. And they are, on my left, just so that I can see him, Alison Haynes. Alison belongs to the Serval Meditation Group, where the administrative staff of Serval meditates together every Wednesday morning.
Yes, Wednesday morning.
At Serval.
Yes, at Serval.
Alison, in her day-to-day life, is the deputy executive director of Serval.
Yes,
Got
I
that
am.
right. And then next to Alison is Camille Huggins. Camille meditates with the Lighthouse Community for Christian Meditation, which is located, or they meditate on a Monday evening at 7 p.m. at the Church of the Nativity at Crystal Stream, which is part of a cluster with St. Anthony's Church. Camille is an associate professor of social work. That's at the University of the South Caribbean, which is located, it's a private university located in Maracas, St. Joseph, and associated with Andrews University, which is in Michigan in the USA. Got all that right?
Yes. Yes, you did.
Lovely. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you for being here. And
You're
thank you for
welcome.
sharing about meditation practice. So let's talk about meditation practice. Let's talk first, Alison. I'll start with you. And when it came into your life, what it's been like, your journey, how do you make sense of the progress of your journey?
Well, I have been doing meditation for almost 2 years now. I was introduced to it by Sister Ruth Montrichat, the chairman of Silver. And for me, it has been a journey. It has been one that is so satisfying. It keeps you centered and grounded. It helps you to connect with yourself, and your relationship with God becomes even stronger during that journey of meditating. It has enhanced my life in the sense that it has helped me to be able to focus more. I'm able to concentrate in situations where there tends to be a lot of anxiety. You know, it really, really helps in those areas, you know, where you can find the time anywhere, any place, at any time to spend that quiet moment and just connect with your Creator, which, you know, who is responsible for your being. And it has really enhanced my life.
If we went to that last part of my question, which was about progress, and you know, one of the things that is said and was said and is said is that we don't judge our practice, and as a result, it leads us into a lack of judgment period, which is a great gift to acquire.
Yes.
But having said that, how would you sort of assess where you are and what it's, you know, what maybe where you would like to go?
For me, in terms of the meditation and how I assess it, is that it has brought me from one place to another, a place where I tried to deal with situations on my own, and now I'm able to do that with the assistance of my Creator in terms of how I interact with Him, how I relate to Him at any given time, any day, in any situation. So it has brought me from that, it's a journey that has taken me from doing things on my own to having the consciousness and the awareness that I am not alone.
That's beautiful. So a deepening of connection.
Yes, it has.
And you, Camille, you want to tell us a little bit about your introduction and your experience and where you think you are?
Well, I
in that
relocated to Trinidad about 10 months ago from New York City. I completed my PhD at New York University and got a position at the University of Southern Caribbean. And my mother lives here, so I decided to relocate to be closer to her and to basically try something different. So 10 months ago, I was introduced to meditation. I was full of anxiety. The transition was complicated for me in a sense, coming from New York to Trinidad. So I definitely went into meditation to, you know, I've always had a close relationship with God, but I wanted to basically talk to Him on a very quiet level, meditate, hear His voice, make sure I'm making the right decision, because, you know, you question yourself when you transfer someplace else, and, you know, calm myself down, because I was full of anxiety. Especially when I relocated, I picked up smoking again, which I quit like 6 years ago, and it calmed me down to stop smoking and to embrace Trinidad and Tobago much better.
Don't mind, I kind of chuckle there, but I love how you put it, embrace Trinidad and Tobago, because I would imagine that it is all those things, I mean,
Yes.
fraught with transition, and it is a big shift.
upheaval of lifestyle. Yes.
Yeah, from New York to Port of Spain.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're doing better now,
I'm doing much, much better.
thanks to meditation practice.
Meditation has helped a great deal. I took a break and then I came right back because it was calling me to say, center yourself, calm yourself, relax, listen to my word. That's how I feel when I do meditation.
Yeah. And so you think that progressively, and not in a linear way, because we're not doing that,
No.
but just in a maybe in an inner journey,
An
as
inner
Alison
journey.
puts it. It has deepened the connection so that you can, it deepened your listening connection.
My listening connection, my holistic connection, being able to be more holistic has been, because you know, New York is very hustle and bustle. I had a lot of jobs and plus going to school, but here I'm able to center myself, heal myself, improve my quality of life, which was a big thing for me.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's amazing. One of the things that, when I've spoken to the meditators, and then you said it to Alison, and you hear over and over, is about focus. And it seems like a paradox that something that really leads you to a level of emptiness can somehow, and maybe in a profound way, the ultimate emptiness can somehow sharpen your focus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, that's an irony, but we hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to why you think that might be, or what have you observed in that process that can create that irony? I'd say for me that, just to give a little sort of introduction into it, is that one of the things that I realize disturbs my focus is that I get I'm very easily distracted, and I often have 1,000 different things going on in my head at the same time and all of that. But because meditation practice is so much about letting go, I think really and truly when I examine it, focus is really the inverse of being cluttered. So really, to become focused, you have to let go.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
So the only way you could actually tackle one thing, which is what focus is, right?
Yeah.
And focus on one thing, is you have to let go of the other
Yes,
things,
you do.
which often are very hard because you're balancing.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think it has something to do with letting go, or is that at the heart of it?
Yeah, well, I tend to agree with you. You have to let go. Because sometimes, you know, during the course of the day, in the hustle and the bustle of the day, with work, with family life, with situations around you, just simple traffic at times, you know, it brings a measure of confusion, you know, because you're trying to focus on what you have to do and try to focus on all the things that are happening around you. And the meditation helps because what you do is that you find that time, as you rightly said, to let go. You let go of everything. You quiet yourself. There's this calmness that comes over you where you don't even hear the sounds that are around you. You know, it's very quiet, you know, and the stillness is so awesome that it brings you to that point. It's like, how I want to explain it, it's like you're in a dark room and the light comes on. Good. That is how meditation is for me. The darkness is all of the confusion and the noise and the people and everything that is happening around you. And then the light comes on. And then there's this stillness because you are aware that this is where I'm supposed to be at this point in time to deal with what is happening with me at any given time.
And I guess it is that light that gives you focus.
Yes, it does. Yes.
When it translates into your everyday
Yes.
life. Yeah, that's amazing.
For me, it's it also taps into my creativity and helps me with research and creativity to talk to my students in a better way. It's able to clarify what's the issues, because a lot of things can come at you and make it seem as though everything is a big deal, but you're able to take the time to clarify what's going on, what do you need to do, how are you going to contribute to another person's life.
So it brings clarity.
It brings clarity, brings a great deal of clarity.
Well, it's like a win-win all around, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And yet-
I've suggested to other,
Other
students,
people,
yes.
and yet
absolutely.
there's still a sort of a myth around it, and and there's still a reluctance.
Yes.
If you were to encourage someone, because we're going to end in a few minutes with a short, we'll close out the program with a short meditation together, just a few seconds, and people are invited to continue on your own. But how would you encourage people to, or would you, and how would you go about, what would you say to come along and
Okay.
join in our
Well,
journey?
the most important thing for me that I would share with them is the whole fact that you are able to find yourself as a person, as an individual. You are able to cope with situations.
Yes.
It's not just about coming and praying or exercising or anything like that, but it's about finding you, finding that stillness in you that helps you to develop into a total human and a total and complete human being. And I think it's just awesome just to be able to achieve that, and it is important.
Yes, I think it is awesome to achieve that.
Yes.
And I think the fact that you say it in everyday life you cope better
Yes.
gives you a practical application.
Yes, it does.
And practically, Camille, you say it's so
Well, you
too.
know, it's important to put down the Facebook, put down the internet, put down the iPhone, you know, because you're inundated constantly as a young person to be in touch or in tune, but you get confused. And to be able to take some time to make some sound decisions without everyone else's influencing you, that's one of the biggest things I've tried to help when I say, you know, I meditate and why it's important to meditate. To be able to tune out and to tune into your God and tune into yourself to get the best light and get the best results possible.
Okay, well, now we're down to seconds. So let me invite you to meditate with me. Let me invite the audience, and let us close as fellow meditators. I'll just say the opening prayer and strike the gong, and we'll close out. Thank you so much for coming and for sharing and for being my guests.
You're welcome.
Heavenly Father, open our hearts to the silent presence of the Spirit of your Son. Lead us into this mysterious silence where your love is revealed to all who call. Maranatha, come, Lord Jesus.